A pegboard is a fantastic addition to your home, providing wall-mounted, flexible and customisable storage. Thanks to the timber material, pegboards can be made in the shape, size and style to suit your space with endless decorative possibilities. In this video, Gary, who's a keen carpenter and has been a Wickes customer for over 30 years, is going to show you how to make a timber pegboard step by step. The materials for this project are all available from Wickes and will take a DIYer with moderate skill approximately 4 hours to build. Look out for this icon during the video for our DIY top tips. For this project we've chosen timberboard, but you could also use hardwood ply or chipboard for a different look. This board will hold 50 wooden dowels, however you can easily adjust the dimensions to suit the space. To begin, gather your tools and materials and set up your chop saw close to your workbench. Position your board so one end overhangs the workbench by about 100mm. Measure and mark a line 50mm in from the edge. Next, measure from the blade to the edge of the shoe on your circular saw. Add this measurement to your board, measuring from the 50mm line. Mark and then draw a line through. Using quick clamps, secure a length of timber with a straight edge along the second marked line. This will act as a guide for your saw. Holding the chop saw firmly against the edge of the guide, cut along the first drawn line. This can be quite dusty, so we recommend wearing a dust mask. Using a palm sander or fine paper, sand the edge of the board to remove any frayed timber. Starting at one end of your board, measure and mark 100mm intervals along the length. Cut a length of 18mm by 144mm by 1.8 metre timber to 600mm, which is the same width as your board. Mark the centre point at each end. Scribe a central line along the length, extending the mark down the depth of each end. Mark along the centre line at 100mm intervals to create your hole guides. Using a bradawl or pointed implement, make a small hole on each mark. Place the drill bit in the bradawl hole, then butt up your 90° off-cut jig. The jig will act as a guide and ensure your drill bit is at 90 degrees to your timber. Drill a pilot hole down through each mark along the length of timber. Then with a 16mm spade bit, drill down through each pilot hole. Put your board back on the workbench and place your guide jig so the central line aligns with the first 100mm marks. Clamp in place using quick clamps. Taking your drill and 16mm spade bit, drill into each jig hole and through the timber board until you hit your workbench. Ensure your workbench is covered with material that you do not mind marking. Unclamp your jig and move on to the next 100mm mark. Ensure your jig is clamped to the timber board and your workbench. Repeat for the length of your timber board until you have the desired number of holes. Using your palm sander, give the board a quick and gentle sand to remove any rough edges or frayed holes, including any leftover pencil marks, as these are no longer needed. Taking a length of dowel, measure and mark the desired peg length, ensuring you include the 18mm depth of the timber board that they will be fitted into. Cut the first length from your dowel. Clamping an off-cut stock block in place, butt up your timber length on the chop saw and cut, repeating until you have the desired number of dowel pegs to fill the timber board holes. Next, shave away a small amount of timber from the end of each dowel, cutting away from yourself using a sharp knife. Cut no higher than the thickness of your timber board, around 18mm, to ensure that the pegs fit snugly into the holes. Push a dowel peg into a hole to check the tapered fit, shaving away a little more timber where necessary. Repeat for each of the dowels. Taking your palm sander, create a small bezel on the opposite end of each dowel to remove the harsh edges. Then take each wooden dowel and push them into the holes for a tight fit. Cut a piece of 18mm by 144mm by 1.8 metre timber and trim to your desired shelf lengths. Once you've cut the shelves, take your palm sander and gently sand each piece of timber and trim to remove any frayed edges. With the pegboard flat on the workbench, put your first shelf on the board and position it so the pegs sit at equal distance underneath. Place a piece of trim on the inside of the two outer pegs and make a small mark. This trim will prevent your shelf from sliding once secured. Scribe a line at each end of the timber to mark the trim position. Taking the mitre bond, apply a thin layer of adhesive to the small lengths of trim. Spray the activator directly to the board, then align the trim to the scribed line, holding it securely to firm up. This will adhere quickly, so ensure your application is fast and precise. Then spray another small amount of activator over the secured trim. Repeat this process so each shelf has 2 pieces of secured trim. You can also add trim in the same way to the edges of your shelves to prevent items falling off. Using your combination square, tidily mark each corner of the pegboard with an X, then drill through the marks with a 90-degree pilot hole. For tidiness, finish the hole with a countersink so the screw will sit flush to the surface of the board. Repeat for each corner, then give each a quick sand with your palm sander to remove any rough edges. Once you've selected the wall where your pegboard will go, put a screw into each hole of the pegboard, twisting away in with your fingers. Using a spirit level, scribe a vertical line on the wall where the edge of the board will sit, then holding the board in place against the vertical line, drive the screws into place. If you're drilling into a brick or plasterboard wall, wall plugs will be required. Simply mark and drill a hole where each corner will be and insert a wall plug before screwing the pegboard into the plugs. And that's it, your pegboard is complete. Simply configure your pegs and shelves to accommodate your tools and equipment with the flexibility to reconfigure at any time to suit larger tools, materials, equipment and additional shelves. Get creative with decoration before fixing the pegboard to the wall to utilise the board in other rooms of your home. Try staining or painting the wood or dip the dowels in different or contrasting colours for a fun look. For more inspiration and advice, subscribe to our social channels and visit Wix online and in store.